Let us continue our sequencer tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to learn how to play audio. We're going to learn how to play particle effects. And let's also look at animating some lights and how sequencer can really animate a lot of properties that exist in our actors. So to start real quick, let's look at visibility. Sometimes we don't want an actor showing up already. We want them to be hidden, and then we want them to show up later on in our cutscene. So a good way to do that is just to set their visibility off and then turn it on when we need it. Let's just look at that real quick with this door. I'm going to use BP door 1, the one on the right. And I'm going to add a new track to BP door. And I'm just going to add this actor hidden in game track. We select that, we see there's visibility, it's a little Boolean value. And so it's always visible, that's represented by this green over here. So maybe 2 seconds into the animation, I'm going to add a keyframe and I'm going to turn the visibility off on that keyframe. And then 4 seconds in, I'm going to turn the visibility back on. And very conveniently, Unreal also just gives us a keyframe there, we don't have to add it. But I also do need to add a keyframe in the beginning to set the visibility on. And now very nicely we can see this color-coded chart, or this color-coded thing on our timeline. It's green where we can see it, then it turns red when its visibility is off, then it turns green again. Real quick, let's just take a look at this visibility thing working. Turns off, turns back on. So between 2 and 4 seconds we had it turned off and it turns back on. So that's just one simple way you can have things hidden and not hidden in the game. Let's delete this for my door because I don't want my door to ever be invisible. And I want my door to just stay visible. But just wanted to show you guys that, this exists for static meshes. We can turn them on and off. Next, let's take a look at animating the lights. Lights are a fairly cool thing, and being able to change some properties in them is very interesting. So the basic level comes in with this directional light. And real quick, if you don't know what a directional light is basically a light that's infinitely far away. Think of like the sun, for example. I know the sun is not really infinitely far away, but it's so far away it might as well be. It's a light that's super far away, and it's shining onto our world. The directional light is not affected by position. You can see I can move it, and it's not changing anything about it because the light's so far away. Its position doesn't matter. With the directional light, the only thing that matters is its rotation. And again, thinking about the sun, and we can see the shadow on this cube, for example. It changes as I rotate it. So directional light kind of, in some sense, tries to represent the sun. But let's animate this directional light. So let me get a reference to it. Let me just drag it and put it in here. And you can see it comes in with light, color, and intensity. It just gives us those tracks. I don't want to do the light color, so I'm just going to highlight it and delete it off. And let's animate the intensity. So the intensity starts at 6, or just defaults to 6. And I'll add a keyframe there, so let it be 6 when we start. And when we end our animation, I want the intensity to be 1. I want it to get really less intense. Let's add another one. Let's add another keyframe there. And we can see when I move the timeline now, we can see that light's dimming down. And when I play this, same thing. We can see as this timeline plays, the lights are getting dimmer and dimmer. It's a little slow, but we can feel the lights are getting dimmer. And if I was to go back, the lights start to get brighter. Now, I said I didn't want to animate the color, and so I deleted it, but I changed my mind. I do want to animate the color. We could come up to directional light component. We can see all these options here. We could find the light color somewhere here. Well, here it is. But again, this is a lot to look at. There's a much easier way of doing this. With the light selected, if I was to look at my details panel, we can see all the options here. And now because there's a sequencer in the level, we can see there's a little triangle next to all of these options. And what this means is any option with a triangle next to it, we can animate that option. So light color has a little triangle. It says add keyframe for this property, and that is what I want to do. I'm going to click that. It's automatically going to add a keyframe to my light color. I'm going to move. So the light color is going to start at white. Maybe 5 seconds in, I want it to be blue. Let's change it to blue. Click add keyframe. Move it all the way to the end. And I want it to be, I don't know, green. So let's add a keyframe again. Now, when I move my timeline, you can see it's lerping from blue to green. And here it lerps from white to blue. And when we play it, we see that exact same thing. It's slowly going towards blue. And then it's going to go towards green. And because we have it playing backwards, when we leave, it's going to do the exact same thing, but backwards. We don't only have to animate this directional light. If you wanted to add something like a point light in here, for example, we'll just give it a different color so we can see this point light. Similarly, we can just take our point light, which we've just added. We can drag it in here, add a track for it. And we can animate parts of the point light as well. Maybe the intensity as the intensity of this light goes down. Maybe I want the intensity of my point light to go up. Make it 1,000, which is very high, but just for demonstration. And then as our cutscene ends, let's have the point light's intensity go back down towards 100. We can even animate the transform of our light. So we can go click here, plus transform, and I want to animate its location. So I want our light to move left and right. So it's going to move left, or it's going to move right. We add a keyframe. It's going to move right. We add another keyframe, and then I'm just going to copy this first keyframe so that it moves back to where it started at the very end. Now, when we play this, we can see our light moves. Our colors changing in the world. So everything we're doing, all these keyframes we're using, we can see that happen in the level. One quick thing, if you notice when I play it right now, it's green and this light's moved slightly and the doors are also in a different position. Whatever position your timeline is in, that's where your level's going to start. So when we play our games, just make sure that we leave our timeline, at 0 or something before 0, so that when we play it, things are normal, and only when we trigger the cutscene do we start seeing those things. Again, small quirk of Unreal. Okay, so now we've animated lights, and we've also seen that not only can we animate lights, we can animate any property of these lights. If you want to change the radius that that this point light affects, just click this, and it adds a track for that source radius. We can always add it comes in with a keyframe. We can go wherever we want. We can change that source radius, and we can add another keyframe. So just very cool to know. Any property that has this little triangle next to it, we can animate that property. Very important thing to know, and it's really what gives Sequencer some of its very powerful features, is that any of these properties we can animate on a timeline. Okay, so we have a light animated. Let's just take a look at audios and particles real quick. So audio is fairly simple. We come to add track, add audio track. I'm just going to add it. It's going to say, do you want to use an audio clock as a source because it makes things more accurate? Let's not worry about what that is. Let's just say yes and let Unreal do its thing. Now we have this audio track here. In this audio track, we can click this plus button to add an audio file, which is going to open up this little search bar, which has all the audio that we have. Maybe I want to open this explosion. We can see we're given it just shows up in my timeline. We can even cut how long we want it to play. By default, it's going to play its full length. If we drag it beyond that, it just keeps repeating the sound effect. I don't want it to do that. In fact, I'm just going to cut it a little short so it just plays the big part of the sound explosion. And now you can hear when I hover when I move the playhead, it kind of plays it. It's a little choppy because it's not playing smoothly, but we know that it's going to be working there. So now when I animate my door, around 3 seconds in, we should hear the sound effects. It's as simple as that. Play it. We heard the little sound effect, and it's also going to play in reverse. I guess it's not going to play in reverse. Actually, that's a good thing. And just like we added this time, this audio, we can also come somewhere else. We can add another audio, so I can have it play explosion, then collapse. And it's going to do exactly that. There's the explosion. And it plays the collapse. So adding audio to our cutscenes is fairly simple. All we need is an audio track, this thing right here. And whenever we can add audio to that by just clicking this plus next to audio. There's a few options that we have with audio tracks. You could add all your audio into one track if you wanted, but you might want to add different types of audios into different tracks. And that's because we can keyframe a few properties about it. If I click this drop down here, we can see I can keyframe the pitch and the volume of our audio. So by default, the pitch is 1. So maybe over here, I'm going to keyframe it to 1, but halfway through, I'm going to reduce the pitch like -14. And then a little forward from that, I'm going to make the pitch go up to 30. And let it continue along. So now we should be able to hear that change. So maybe that was a little... But the pitch had changed. It got a little lower in tone, and then it got a little... I'm sorry, it got lower in pitch first, and then went up in pitch. And just like that, we can also change the volume of our thing. So for this collapse, let's just try that. Let's start at volume 1. By the time I collapse is about a quarter of the way through. Let's make the volume go down to 0. And Unreal just adds a keyframe there. And let's try this. So we heard that collapse. It started off normal, but it quickly faded down to 0. And so again, this is a good way, especially with certain audios that don't end properly. Instead of just abruptly stopping it, we can keyframe the volume to go down to 0, so it kind of softly fades away. And so that's pretty simple, how to add sound effects into our sequencer. Let's look at the last thing for this video. Let's look at how to add particle effects. So one fairly simple way to add particle effects is just to add them into our scene. So if I was to come here, go to type in P fire. Oh. Let's look under content, P fire. We can drag it into the level. And this is just like any other actor. So I can drag P fire into my sequencer. And I can animate anything about it. I can animate its transform, I can go ahead and animate its location. Move it around a little bit. We can even animate its scale and its rotation as well. So let's just make it get a little bigger as time goes along. And so a particle effect is just like any other actor that way. We can animate a lot of things about it. But really, the main thing about a particle that we want to animate and not animate is when it's getting triggered. We don't want the particle effect to just always be on screen sometimes. Maybe with this fire, it's okay. We could do actor hidden in game, but that's just going to make the particle effect instantly fire and instantly come back. It's going to look a little weird. It's just going to disappear and then reappear. So for particles, we want it to look a little smoother. Instead, for particles, when we click on this track, we want to add the FX system toggle track. We add that in, and we can see just like the actor in hidden in game, it has an activate and a deactivate option. So I'm going to start this as deactivated. Let's just give it a keyframe there to start as deactivated. And then maybe 1 second in, I want to activate it. And then at the very end of our cutscene, maybe 9 seconds in, I want to deactivate it again so that it's just gone. And so now, let's take a look at this particle. I walk in here. Our particle's gone. Let's gonna come back. There it is. And as we approach the end of our animation, it vanishes away again. And when I leave the trigger box, it's gonna run in reverse, but exactly the same point. For now, because we're starting to get a lot more stuff happening in this cutscene, I'm just gonna delete this end overlap code. I don't want my thing running backwards. And now we can take a look at that again. So there's the particle effect. It's moving around. It's nice and big. And as our animation comes to an end, we've turned it off. It's hit this deactivate, and the particle goes away. So perfect. Now, this is good for a fire particle, something that's going to be persistent. But what if I wanted to do something like an explosion, something that just happens once and I want it to stop? Well, to do that, first, just like the other one, let's add an explosion into our scene. So I'm just going to search for p_explosion. And this is a one-shot particle effect. It just plays once and then it's done. So to start with this, I don't want it to play when I start the game. I don't want to see that explosion. And to do that, we're going to scroll down the detail panels to activation, and I'm going to turn off auto activate. So now when I play the game, our explosion doesn't happen. Let's go back to sequencer, make sure everything's nice and minimized, and let me add this P explosion in here. So there it is. And all I want to do is the same thing. I want to go click here, add an FX system toggle track. Let's start it off as deactivated. And then maybe 3 seconds in, when this explosion sound happens, I'm going to set it to activate. And you can see there it is, it activates. And then at the very end of that again, I'm just going to set it to deactivate. Let's move this explosion a little back so we end up seeing it. And let's also scale it up. So now we run our animation. When that explosion sound effect played, so the particle effect play once. And that fire is still moving, looks crazy. The last thing to note here is this explosion, when Unreal put it in at the length of the animation. If I was to increase the size of this, auto activate, it is going to play the particle more than once. So just like our sound, it should loop over and over again. You can see the animation plays, it ends, and it keeps looping. But the convenient thing for this is, again, Unreal is going to tell us how long it is, because as I drag this out, you can see it doesn't go beyond, like this little gray bar doesn't go beyond that. So I know how long one single particle effect animation is, and I can make sure to deactivate it at that point. This is, again, similar to the sounds, where if I drag it out beyond the sound, it's just going to keep playing the sound over and over and over again. So we've looked at quite a few things. We've looked at how to add sounds, how to add particles, and how to add lights. And we also saw how we can animate really anything that Unreal, any of these properties, by just looking at the details panel and seeing what has a triangle next to it. This is really good. I would urge you guys to, take a look at this, play around with it, start just adding random keyframe properties, see what it does. Sequencer is a very powerful tool. And this is one big reason why, is because we can animate really any property. As you guys get more into Unreal, you can even write your own blueprints where we can start animating its properties. You can start creating materials where you can animate its properties on keyframes. Again, Sequencer, very powerful tool for that. And specifically nowadays with Unreal 5, Sequencer is not only used by game developers for cutscenes, Sequencer is also used by architectural visualization and advertisers. They bring in very high quality models and they use a camera and they start creating advertising shots for their, ads using Sequencer. Anyway, that ends part 2. In the next part, we are going to look at how we can use curves and paths to make things move on a nice path or a nice curve. Thank you for watching.